I do, that was like our first call. You were like, you're working way too hard. In my mind, I was like, wait, are you sure? how can I work not as hard and make more money? This is great. And then you were like, and you were definitely not charging enough. The very next week after you and I talked and I started going through our tracker and I started doing the right things, I had sales calls and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually have people on my calendar now. Like this is great. I barely could get around to anything else. I had to constantly nurture that post because there were so many people.
Have you ever been on the verge of giving up after trying very hard for very long at something and things just don't happen for you? If that's the case, you're really going to enjoy today's video. Today's video is a story about perseverance. It's a story about courage, about fortitude, about having the tenacity to know you deserve better and not giving up. Today's video is about my client, Brandon. He's a parenting coach. He helps dads be better dads to their children without shouting, yelling, screaming, or threatening them. Brandon told me that he'd moved from being a fitness coach to being a parenting coach, and he'd been at it for 2 years, being on all different platforms, but none of it was working. He had no clients. And Brandon went from that to being only on one platform and making $3,000 every single week. That's $12,000 in a month after 2 years of not having any results whatsoever. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the other side. Brandon, welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. It's been a journey with you, and I'm really grateful. So I'm a parenting coach. I help dads, especially with anger and patience. And I teach them very powerful language and tools so that they can gain more cooperation, more contribution in the house without having to be this big angry giant. So a lot of times I'm working with guys to break family cycles, to break a tradition of being, angry and thinking that that's the best way to get our children to cooperate. And so we do a lot of good. It's a lot of fun, and I'm very blessed to be in the place that I am.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. So Brandon, let's back up a bit. Let's go back a couple of months and let's talk about what things were, prior to us working together. And you can share with people because there's a bunch of people who are experiencing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So prior to working with you, I was on every platform you could think of, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I had a blog. I made an online quiz that, I was told, online quizzes are the best way to have a funnel, right? So I made an online quiz. I contributed to newsletters for different Facebook groups. I was just doing everything I could to try to generate leads. And I was constantly trying to build different types of funnels. I mean, I found myself always thinking about how do I build this funnel, and I wrote like a year's worth of email tips and strategies, and I just put in a ton of work, and it felt like I was constantly pumping, and just nothing was coming out the other side. It was very stressful, and I just kind of felt like I was constantly in this world, like where I was grabbing at straws. Like I just couldn't seem to get anything to take hold. And that was kind of what was going on before I met you.
And how long had you been doing this, man? How long had you been at it?
Almost a year and a half.
Almost a year and a half. All right, cool. So that's pretty typical, man. I see the same thing every single day. I see people on a whole bunch of platforms working hard, burning the midnight oil. How long were you working? Well, what did a typical workday look like for you? How many hours of work was it?
So I got up around 5:30 a.m. and I would get to work generally around like 6:30. And then I basically wouldn't stop until, 5 p.m. I really have a strong boundary when it comes to my kids, when it comes to my weekends and my evenings. So I am unwilling to not draw that hard line. And part of that is because I do believe you're more productive when you have a hard line. If you think you can constantly let yourself off the hook and let things slide into your evening, I think it affects your productivity. So, and also I want my kids to have me when they can. So, but I was still working quite a bit, a lot of hours, and it was wearing a lot of hats. I was trying to learn these different platforms, trying to understand their algorithms, trying to understand how content needs to be created on different ones. And it really just had my brain kind of spinning
Yeah, yeah. All right. So then what happened after that? What led you to working with me? Why did you decide to work with me in Record Breaker? Why did you decide to join the program?
So one of my strategies with the lead generation was to get into Facebook groups and to become a contributor to Facebook groups where people would regularly see me, I'd find my audience, etc. In doing so, I actually met a really great guy. His name is Luke Finn, and Luke is a relationship coach, and he is one of the admins for a very large fatherhood group online called Dads Helping Dads. And Luke and I were connected. He had me do a Facebook Live. And when him and I got into a meeting privately outside that Facebook Live, he said, hey, how's business? What are you doing? What are you up to? And I told him what was going on. I told him how many things I was trying, et cetera. And he said, I have a coach that is amazing, that he would be amazing for you. His name is Yaya. And he's like, if you get connected with Yaya, he's going to blow your business up. He's like, I really think you should work with this guy. If you can afford him, if you have the time, if you can do this, you should do it. Like, just make it work. And so he was very passionate about you. And so that we, kind of went by about maybe a month or 2 months of after we'd done our live, maybe a month. And I think I'd added you as a Facebook friend, and was watching some of your stuff. You and I talked in Messenger, and pretty soon it was like I realized, like, I've done a lot of programs. So backing up a little bit, I'd also enrolled myself into a couple programs. I enrolled myself into a lead generation program because I really wanted to generate more leads. I enrolled myself in a course building program because as a coach, I wanted to scale myself. So I wanted to build an online course, which I did build. Unfortunately, I built an online course and had no one to sell to. And then I entered a lead generation course, and I didn't necessarily generate that many leads. I did a lot of just spinning my wheels, it felt like. And so anyway, so I ended up getting connected with Luke. Luke recommended you, and we got connected, and that's kind of how it started.
I remember the conversation you and I had, and you walked me through your entire business. And I was like, dude,
you're doing way too much.
You're doing way too much. You need to do less. You need to charge more. All right.
Yeah.
So then we started working in Record Breaker. Now, share your experience. What was it like working in Record Breaker?
Yeah. So I'm really glad that you mentioned the whole, you're doing too much, you're working too hard. That was like our first call. You were like, you're working way too hard. In my mind, I was like, wait, are you sure? How can I work not as hard and make more money? This is great. And then you were like, and you were definitely not charging enough. And, I'd heard that many times, but I always had some hesitation, around, well, I know, but people already tell me they can't afford it, and, all of these things. So I had some resistance to it at first, but yeah, we were able to reduce the platforms I was on. I was able to actually book sales calls. I remember like in the very next week after you and I had talked and I started going through our tracker and I started doing the right things, I had sales calls. And I was like, oh my gosh, I actually have people on my calendar now. Like this is great. And, those sales calls represent opportunity. And when you don't have sales calls, it can be really discouraging. You don't feel like you have opportunity to make money for your family. You don't feel like you have opportunity to help people. That's what I really wanted to do, is just help these people. And I know I can. And, so we increased my prices. We decreased the platforms I was on. I dropped almost all of the platforms and just focused on the one that I had the best opportunity on. And so then once we refined everything, it was like, it really is that, goes back to those wisdoms of like, you can have, this giant ray of sun, or you can have a laser beam, and which is more powerful, right? The laser beam. So we turned my business more into a laser beam, and obviously we got better results. So.
Yeah. I recall you sending me a Slack message where you had like 1,500 people reaching out to you, raising their hands on one piece of content.
On one post. Yeah. I told you, I said, Yeah, this post is blowing up. You said, what's going on, Brad? I said, I haven't been able to do anything but respond to this post. It's been going absolutely bananas. I had more people raising their hand, liking the thing, telling me I'm interested, I needed this, all of these things. I had so many, I barely could get around to anything else. I had to constantly nurture that post because there were so many people. It was very much like one of the first times I'd ever had something go semi-viral. I mean, it's not viral like most people think of virality, but it is viral on my scale, on that niche, and in my niche, serving the pain point that I serve. This post, 1,500 likes and hearts, and then 500 plus comments. And so many of those people were people saying, I so needed this. And so it was just like a huge generation of leads where I was like, wow, these are all people who struggle with what I'm talking about, who need the services I have, and they are literally loving my content. Yeah. So pretty awesome.
So since we're talking about content creation, you were creating a lot of content prior to us working together as well. So speaking in terms of a sunshine or a shotgun approach versus like a sniper or a laser beam, how is your approach towards content creation different now? How do you treat content now versus how you were treating content earlier?
So this is the other thing too, is before I was making content based on, how to say it, I was trying to think of like a good tagline, like a good headline, and then like part of my personal story. Like I was just trying to come up with just random ideas that I thought people would relate to, that would help them, know what I do as a coach. And what ended up happening is, I interviewed, I think it was like 30 plus dads that were in my target market, which is something you had me do in the beginning. It was, I want you to just get on them, ask them questions. What do they think is the ideal offer? Where have they been struggling? How long have they been struggling? Do all these things, which actually generated leads in and of itself, just doing the interviews, which was awesome. And that was an added benefit. And like you told me on the call, tell them I'm not going to sell you, and I won't even sell to you if you ask me, which was great, and totally relieved people. And so, I did all those interviews, and I figured out a number of things, and then I was able to speak to those. And then I was able to go, and I remember the content flywheel that we did was so brilliant, where before I was thinking I needed to create unique content constantly. And I was having to create a unique piece for this group and for my page. And I was creating a unique piece for all these platforms. So that was just like way too much. So whenever we started applying the content flywheel and putting these pieces in different places at different times, we were also seeing what people responded to. And we were seeing what were the messages that were really hitting those heart chords that made them feel compelled to actually say something. And whenever we dialed that in, and then I just started writing messages that were basically the same idea, but just told in a different way, told in the opposite, like, here are the cons, here are the pros, like, here's what we're doing here, et cetera. It made content so much easier. And it also made it more effective. Like they were way more likely to engage with it, which helps get more eyeballs, And so it was just really helpful. And, it changed. The marketing piece was a big part of it.
Yeah. I recall a time where you had so many leads. You were like, I was like, don't worry about content. Just make sure.
I'm still working leads from some of those posts. Yesterday I went to, this is the thing. When you make something that really hits home, and you've dialed this stuff in, you can go back. I go back to some of those old posts, and they still have people that are on it that are still raising their hands. So sometimes I go back and I look, and there'll be like 3 or 4 people that I've never reached out to, and they're totally new. They just now saw that post. And so I have, I will go back to some of our older pieces and still find leads there, which is cool. It builds on itself. It's like a snowball, it just kind of, once it starts rolling, it picks up its own steam.
Yeah, I think once you have the foundation correct, where we've tested certain things and we know what works, because people work too hard on content, but they don't work on the right part of content. They work on creating content, but they don't work on engineering content or reverse engineering content in our case. Once you've done that, content creation, especially using Hydra, becomes super easy. All right, man. So we've talked about the fact that leads blew up for you. We've talked about the fact that you started booking a ton of calls. I know at some point in time you're doing on average maybe 3 to 5 calls a week now, and
Oh yeah.
So, like, what were the results that you've experienced in terms of your business, in terms of everything else? What were the results that you experienced in record?
So, there's the inner results, and then there's the outer results. I think I told you, I feel like part of my story with you is going from stressed to blessed. You are such a great mindset coach, and I was stressed. I was really stressed about where is my company going to go? What am I going to do? Just all of these things, and just feeling very stressed out. And between some of the mindset exercises that we did, and the actual results I was getting, and I have been getting, I now feel just very blessed. I feel constantly blessed, which is a different experience, obviously, than it's like the opposite of feeling stressed. And so that's the internal side. The other side of it is that I had to face some of my own internal blocks. Like, it's like, especially when you're tracking, which I think is such a great diagnostic tool to see yourself. It's like, look at yourself in the numbers, look at yourself in the data, see how you show up for yourself in these ways. And that's a really great mirror, And so, those are the internal. The external result of us working together is now I actually have been able to work with people and help people and actually get them, the results and have the opportunities. And before, it was like, I almost had to give away my services before just to get people I could help, which is, it was tough. But today I don't feel that way at all. And actually I feel inside of myself that I'm giving myself away for too little now. And we've more than doubled my prices, and I'm still like, they're getting such a bargain, and I want people to get a bargain. I want people to feel like they get a deal. But today I literally have been feeling more and more like, gosh, maybe I am just not charging enough, because these guys are getting life-changing stuff that is going to be an investment for the rest of their lives and their generations. And it takes a lot out of me. I put a lot into every single thing I do, and so, yeah, it's an interesting place to be at, to where before doubling my price was scary, and now I'm even like, ooh, this is still really a bargain.
Yeah, man, yeah. So that's why, right? The moment we have a lot of leads, a person starts relaxing. And then and I know in your case, we also had to work on converting those leads.
Oh, 100%.
We had a lot of people coming to you, but we had a conversion issue. And I was like, Brandon, you need to convert.
A little too nice.
Yeah, stop being so nice on sales calls. We had to review certain calls, and we had to make some changes to what you were doing on your call, and then people started trickling in. And now that they're trickling in, you can. And I've always said this to you, that price is arbitrary. It's
right.
A made up number in our head. And now you're beginning to feel it, because people, once people start buying, it becomes a lot easier to raise your prices. And I
absolutely.
I recall a particular conversation. This was earlier on in the beginning, when we were working. You came to me and you were like, yeah, is this really for me? Like, am I meant to do this? Should I continue pursuing this? And this is after leads have blown up. This is when we were working only on converting this. And I was like, Brandon, this is not the time to quit, man. You've solved the biggest problem that people have, which is getting clients, getting customers. Now it's just converting them. That was one of the easiest things in the world to do.
Yeah.
And I remember.
Yeah, I definitely hit that point. I think, I've had to recommit to my business a number of times. I was really grateful for you. I remember you saying, Brandon, you can borrow my belief. If you're not believing in yourself, I believe in you. Believe me, I actually know you can do this. And you're way too close way too close to stop right now. Like you're literally, you have come over the hill and you need to start catching the momentum, but you've already broken through the biggest challenges, and the being so nice, it's so funny to me. Like I love people and I love families, and money can always be a sensitive subject for people. When they get around the money piece, it doesn't matter. Most people are just a little bit more guarded. They think about things a little bit. And as soon as that happens for me, and as so much of it is my own projection, about money. And you really help me, think through that, and help me think through like how to really coach these people into that moment, because it's like, but we're going to let them go when they know they're so close. This is what they need. This is what their family needs. Like, is it really worth it for their family to experience more trauma, more heartache, more frustration? Is it really worth it? It's like, being able to ask those people the tough questions is something that I just like struggled to do. And I'm very grateful now to be in the place where I feel comfortable to ask them.
Yeah. I think you're comfortable now because you're comfortable as yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because the reason why people are overly nice is because people themselves, they're not very secure. They're not very comfortable in who they are. Either they're pretending to be a person their business coach told them to be, or they're pretending to follow a script that doesn't really feel like right before this call, we had a conversation on authenticity. Yes. And you were like, yeah, this feels authentic. I was like, all right, let's just go with what feels authentic. So the moment you feel authentic, the moment you feel congruent, you automatically feel comfortable. So I've got a question for you, Brandon. So I've taught you a lot of stuff. What is something that you learned from me that I didn't actively set out to teach you?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm sitting there smirking as you're saying, you got to be more yourself. I literally, thinking about this question, you sent me some of the questions that we would do in this interview, and this was one of the ones that stood out to me. And I thought, man, that's a really great question. What did he actively teach me, or what did he teach me that he didn't actively do himself? And the thing that stood out to me was being myself is my greatest asset. Trying to be someone else, not recognizing and appreciating God's gifts and talents that we are given, where you're trying to, because you watch these programs or you take these courses, and soon you start trying to be what you think the algorithms want, or you try to, be what you think other people want. And I think the thing that I got from you that was so powerful that you didn't tell me overtly was just that you being me, like I am one of my greatest talents and gifts. Like I am the people that are attracted to me, the people that will work with me. It's partly because of who I am, and embracing that and loving that part and being willing to show that part of me, and be not trying to be something any different than I already am, and really embracing God's gift of who I am as a unique individual. That I think that's something you taught me that you never told me or anything, but I've felt it. And it's just so funny that right before that is almost a psychic moment where right before you ask that question, you start talking about that. But that is something that I feel like I've learned from you.
All right. And so with the results that we've talked about now, the leads, the inner transformation, the sales, the money, how has life changed for you? How has that impacted your life?
Well, I've definitely, obviously I'm feeling a lot less stress, like I mentioned. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about the future, and what opportunities and how will this continue? Now that I have the skills that I need to generate the leads, now I have the skills that I need to close the leads, now that I have, the understanding of how to market, how do I reach them? How do I hit those right notes so that they feel compelled to raise their hands with me? Now that I have all of these pieces, I can just see how, for example, I'm probably going to raise my prices at some point. I'm thinking maybe here next month, maybe 2 months, I'm most likely going to raise my prices again. I'm looking forward to my future and the business opportunities that I have going forward. And I feel more confident in my company's ability to be successful and my coaching. opportunities. So that's, I think, for me, it's just looking forward to all the people I'm going to be able to work with, all the families are going to be able to help, all the business I'm going to be able to generate. It's looking forward. That's what I'd say is the most exciting thing.
So I have a feeling we're going to be raising your prices real soon. So everybody who's watching, if you want to work with Brandon, now's the time.
Yeah, get in right now while you've got it.
Do it right now.
Most likely a 50% discount.
Absolutely. So last question, man. So there's a lot of people, I know this, you know this. There's a lot of people in the same situation as you. There's a lot of people who've attended certain programs that they've been told to be a certain person. And doesn't matter what that person is, every program has their own philosophy. Sometimes people are lost in too much information. Sometimes people are told that you have to be on 7 different platforms at the same time. Other times people are told to be a certain person on social media, this, that, and the other, right? And they're struggling with that. And I like to talk about it in terms of great coaches who are bad marketeers. They're the ones suffering. And then there's great marketeers who are bad coaches who are doing very well because they've embraced marketing. So what message would you have for other people in your shoes, like people who've been at it for a while, they've joined a couple of programs, they have not had an ROI, they haven't made money, and what would you tell them? What message do you have for them?
I have 2 messages. Now that I've been doing this for a while now, and I've tried so many different things, and I've been in so many different programs and everything, one of the best messages I could say is stop investing in group programs if they're just group. You need someone who can watch your sales videos. You need someone who can be with you. You need someone who can learn some of your, mental blocks, and I think working with somebody like you, like actually having someone who can, dial you in is much more effective, in my opinion, than going out and joining another group program where people can't give you that direct feedback. They can't get to know you on the level that you and I, for example, were able to get to know one another. I did, doing those other programs, there's just not enough direct and individual one-to-one kind of feedback. I think that's a big part of what they miss. And so, I would say definitely if you're, invest in coaching because it's worth it. I definitely believe in coaching. I don't, one of the things I believe more than anything is somebody who's been where you are wanting to go and been where you are and has traveled that path and understands the falls and the pitfalls and understands how to help you get there is gold. It's everything. But you got to find the right person who you trust and you believe in. You got to be coachable and actually let them coach you. And I really think you need direct feedback. There's a lot of programs out there that are group coaching programs that I don't think are all that effective. That deliver the information. The information they deliver, you can find for fractions of the cost on things like Skillshare, on other websites. I mean, I've been in programs that cost, up north of $8,000. Okay. And the stuff that was in the course material, I have also found in a program that was $99. So you got to ask yourself, are you going to pay, if you're paying for just material only, go for the bargain stuff and collect it, because most people are going to teach the same stuff. If you actually want to get direct feedback, support and stuff, go with a coach that's a one-to-one coach. Go with somebody like, that's what I'd say. Really get somebody who really can help you.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, man. I often tell people it's not what you learn, it's not knowledge, it's not information, it's actually the doing. Right. The implementation. Yes. I mean, when we talked about tracking, we had a couple of places where you had trouble implementing, and I was like,
100%.
You know what to do. Why is it not happening? And that's where people get tripped up. Anyway, Brandon, thank you so much, man, for doing this. I hope the people who need to hear this watch this, they get inspired with this, they learn to, and they realize that they need to take action in their lives. They need to invest in themselves, and they don't give up, just like you were about to, because not everybody has access to a coach to tell them don't give up right now. So if someone's watching right now and they're on the verge of giving up, don't. You've come very far. Usually, we most often feel like giving up right before a breakthrough. Because if you recall, Brandon, after we had that conversation, in less than a week, you sent me a message and you were like, dude, money in the bank.
So I woke up to the email paid in full.
Yeah. So thank you, man. Thank you very much, Brandon. It's been wonderful chatting with you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother.
Bye-bye. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you took some gold nuggets from him. But most of all, I hope you learned that you don't have to give up. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. There is always hope. You just have to make sure that you invest in the right things. And if something is not working, figure out why it's not working and fix it instead of trying it again and again and again. Because remember, making a mistake once is okay. But if you keep making the same mistake again and again and again, you are choosing to make that mistake. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.